I am going to show you how to make a puppet mouth. This is the puppet right here. I can show you. This is the puppet we're going to be making the mouth for. It's just a simple foam puppet. There we go. You can see it's Scott foam glued together, some super soft mouth corners. And now we need to make the mouth plate for that puppet. Let me show you what a normal puppet mouth plate would look like. This is a finished puppet here, but you can see right here, this is the mouth plate inside. It's wood covered in ultra suede, and that is what we are going to make right now. There are a few materials that you'll need to make this puppet. First of all, the mouth is going to be made out of wood. So instead of rubber, we're making this mouth out of wood. This is craft plywood. You can get this at your local craft store. So plywood, craft plywood. You can also use some gaff tape. This is what we use to joint the puppet's mouths. Ultra suede. This is what we use to cover the inside of the mouth. You'll need a little bit of rubber. Now this rubber you can get at like a shoe supply store. Some sandpaper, a Dremel, and also some glue. Barge cement is what we're using. And because we're doing that, we'll want to use gloves and a respirator because we want to make sure that we are using safety first. Now, when you're making a puppet mouth such as this, there are a few considerations to keep in mind. One, you want to make sure the size of the mouth is good for the size of the puppet. And the way that we figure out what size mouth is we do a mock-up first. So if we had gone through the whole process of mocking up the puppet, we would have ended up with this. This is our pattern for the puppet mouth. And this is what we are going to use as our pattern to create a mouth for this foam puppet. So let's get started. First things first, we're going to take our pattern and we're going to trace it onto our wood. And if you've seen these before, you know I like these trusty pattern weights, and we use these to hold our pattern in place, okay? So I'm just gonna trace our wooden pattern, or a pattern onto the wood. So I'll hold it down with these little pattern weights. Just grab a little pen here, and we're just gonna trace like so. There's a little registration mark at the top of our pattern. That little cutout, we use that to mark the center. And we'll do it this one too. I'm going to trace it onto the wood. All right, now I'm going to cut this out on the bandsaw. So a few words of caution whenever you're using a piece of equipment like the bandsaw, which we'll be using, and also the belt sander. Always follow all safety instructions. Safety first, always, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out on the bandsaw, but I'm going to cut it out sort of coarsely because actually most of my shaping will be done on the sander. So I'm going to do a rough cut on the bandsaw, and I'll show you what that looks like. One thing is these bandsaws have these guards. What you want to do is make sure you lower the guard. This one is lowered down as far as it'll go so that I don't run the risk of cutting my fingers. Okay, so the guard is lowered. It will be noisy. I'm going to turn it on, and I'll show you the rough cut of the wooden pallets. Here we go. Now, when I said rough cut, you might have thought I was joking, but I'm really not. This is really a rough cut. I'm just cutting these just general shape. The reason why is with a mouth plate like this, if I gouge into it, I gotta start over. So it's actually a lot easier to just do most of the shaping on the belt sander. So I have my belt sander hooked up to a vacuum cleaner right here, so we can suck up all the dust and such as we're going. So again, this is going to be noisy. I'm going to turn the vacuum, turn the belt sander, and I'm going to use that to shape these pallets and make them round. Here we go. Here is our now nicely cut and sanded wooden mouth pallet, top and the bottom. These happen to be even. They don't have to be even for whatever puppet you're making, but for today's purposes, they're even. Now, the way we attach these pallets together is with this gaff tape. Now, this tape is a little wide. This is a 2-inch piece, so I'm actually going to thin it out a little bit. I don't need that much. So I'm going to cut a longer piece, and then I'm going to just rip off what I don't need. And I can take this, cut it in half. So now I've got the gaff tape. And it's important when you are putting your wooden pallet together that you want to make space between. You don't want it to go right up next to each other because it makes it very hard to open and close. You actually want a gap. And the gap can be as wide as you want, really, but usually a 1/2 inch or an inch gap is what we aim for. Now I'm going to take the wood and I'm going to place it down on the tape, like so. And I could measure it, but let me just see if I can just kind of eyeball this. So that looks like a good distance. Let me just grab a ruler and double check that. Yeah, we're about 3/4 of an inch. About 3/4 of an inch. So that'll be fine. So now I have it taped down like this. I take the second piece of tape and I'm gonna lay it right on top. I'm really making sure that it's pushed down really securely. So you can see it looks like this now. Now, next thing I'm going to do is trim off the excess gaff tape. Looking pretty good. Now, I'm going to take my sandpaper, and I'm actually going to use this to do two things. One, I'm going to rough up the wood a little bit, and two, I'm going to rough up the gaff tape a little bit. And the reason why is we're going to ultimately glue down this ultra suede to the gaff tape, but the gaff tape kind of has like a layer where it doesn't really want to accept glue. So we just need to rough it up just a little bit, just so it'll accept the glue. We'll do the same with the wood. Just give it a light sand. That's where we're going to be gluing the ultra suede down. And on this side, we're going to be putting in a little finger grip. So we want to kind of rough up this wood a little bit where the finger grip's going to go. Just make sure that it'll accept the glue. You can also use like an X-Acto or Persona, and you can actually score the wood a little bit in hatch marks. That really helps it to accept the glue. The thing is with this finger grip is you want to make it as secure as possible, because that's where the puppeteer will be hanging on for dear life once their hands are inside this puppet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little glue on this surface, because glue glues well to wood, but it glues really well to glue. So let me grab some gloves. Whenever we use our glue, we want to use gloves to protect our hands. We want to work in a well-ventilated space, and we want to use a respirator just to limit our exposure from all of those harmful fumes. And I highly recommend, before you use anything like barge contact cement, follow all safety instructions on the label. Okay, so now I'm going to put on my respirator, and I'm going to put a little glue down where the finger grip's going to go. So I just use a little brush here and just brush a little bit of glue. Seal that up, put that aside, just like that. And then I'm just going to put this aside out of the way so that can dry. Now while that is drying, we're going to make our finger grip. This is the pattern for the finger grip. Pretty simple. Over the years, we've discovered that the less you can put inside a puppet, the more puppeteer friendly it can be. Because we're puppeteers as well, we always want to make sure that we're making something that's that works well, but is also highly functional for the puppeteers that are going to use it. Sometimes that's even us. So less is more when you're making the inside of a puppet. Great, so now I'm just tracing this rubber grip. The rubber that we use, this is rubber that we purchase at a shoe supply store. I can kind of show you what it looks like up close. It's just a rubber soling. So it comes in different thicknesses. I think this is about 1/4 inch, and in the real world, it's used to like make platform shoes. And it's great for making these grips because it already has some thickness to it. It's super light, it's sturdy. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, just like with the wood, I'm gonna do a coarse cut on the bandsaw just to get close to the shape, but I'm not really trying to be too careful with it. I'm just cutting off the bulk of it. So let's cut this on the bandsaw for starters. Again, I need to raise my guard because last time I lowered it for the little thin wood. So I'm gonna raise it up just to, so it's barely clearing my material. All right. Again, just doing a coarse cut on the bandsaw, because really I'm going to end up shaping it with this belt sander and eventually the Dremel. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to really remove the excess, round it the best I can using the belt sander. So now I've got it sanded mostly the way I want it. Now I'm actually going to use this Dremel to just sort of finish it up and make sure it's really smooth. Again, this is the part that the puppeteer is going to be grabbing onto, so you really want to make sure that it's rather smooth. All right. So now we have this grip here. What I want to do is I want to make sure I kind of test it against my my mouth palate. So kind of place it in place, kind of put my hands on it, and sort of feel, you know, how I think that feels. Does it feel too high? Is it too low? Is it round enough? And I think for my taste, it feels pretty good. I'm gonna take the height down just a little bit, but we're very, very close. There. Now, I want to make sure that I can glue it down securely. So just like I roughed up the wood, I'm actually going to rough up the back of this rubber a little bit to help the glue have more purchase. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to kind of score the back. Because we actually want the glue to kind of like get into the rubber. Again, this is We want it to be as secure as possible because this is where the puppeteer is grabbing onto the puppet. So now I'm going to glue this. What I kind of do is I can kind of spread these little score marks up, and I'm going to actually put the glue. Let me show you. I'm going to actually score these things. See that? I'm going to put the glue inside those little score marks. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. So, mask up. A little glue into the score marks. And like so. And we're going to let that dry. All right. So now I'm going to put a little fresh glue right here where we're going to put our finger grip in place. And I'm sort of covering sort of a generous area because I want the flexibility to be able to move it around and position it as needed. Move it around, make sure it's nearly dry. Then I add a little bit more fresh glue to this. Wave it around until it's dry. And now I'm going to press these things together, and I'll kind of use my fingers to try to figure out where the placement needs to be. And once I feel like I have the placement, then I can really push it down hard. So, it goes a little drier. Now I'm going to just sort of place it generally, kind of tack it down. I kind of pretend I've got the puppet on. You don't want it too far back, you don't want it too far forward. You kind of find that just right. Definitely usually err more on the side of further forward. Worst comes to worst, it can always be adjusted once the puppet head is in. I sort of feel like that's a good placement. All right, and press it down. Now it's time to add our mouth material. We're using Ultra Suede. Most fabrics, Ultra Suede included, have two sides, a right side and a wrong side. Now there's no wrong side of Ultra Suede. I don't know if this will show, but one side is slightly darker than the other. So I just kind of look at it and think, which one do I want to use? I think I want to use the darker. I think the darker one's to show. So I'll put the glue on the lighter side. So I'm going to use large cement, and we're going to glue the palette. Putting a nice, thin, even coat. For this, I'm just using the applicator, not using foam. Shouldn't be too thick, because if it's too thick, it can seep through the fabric, and we don't want that to happen. Okay. Nice thin coat of glue. Now I'm going to apply glue to the Ultra Suede, and I want it to be glued in kind of a larger area. What you don't want to do is cut the Ultra Suede and then try to like really fussily put it on. Much easier to trim it after the fact. When you apply glue to Ultra Suede, you want to use a foam applicator, and you want to apply it in dabs and make sure it goes on light. You don't want it to soak through and be visible on the other side. So grab your foam applicator, dab it on your cardboard, and you're going to lightly dab it, lightly. Don't let it soak in. You want to just dab it lightly. Nice thin, even coat. There we go. Nice thin, even coat like so. And then we just wait a minute for this to dry. And wait a bit for this to dry. Again, contact cements work when both sides are a little dry, sort of tacky. Move it around. And once I feel like they're sufficiently dry to have a nice bond, I'm going to press the wood flat down onto the Ultra Suede. Press firmly. Now it's pressed down. And now, take our trusty scissors and we're going to trim off all of the excess Ultra Suede. Cut it as flush to the wood as possible. And you want to cut it as clean as possible. And ultimately this edge will be covered with fleece, but it's still nice to try to keep things as neat and tidy as you can. There you are. Just clean up some of this. Nice. And there is your puppet mouth. There's the grip the puppeteer can hold on to. Eventually, this will get installed into this puppet, like so. So, there you go. Wooden pallet for a foam puppet. If you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe to our channel. Like the videos, subscribe. Also, I did see some questions pop up while I was doing this, but go ahead and put them in the comments. If you put them in the comments, I will answer as many questions as I can. Try to give you as much information as I can. If you want to see this entire process really, really fast, you can follow us on TikTok. We're Swazzle Puppet Studio, at Swazzle Puppet Studio on TikTok. And we show this whole process in 30 seconds. But this is a little more informative here. Also, head over to our Instagram, which is at Swazzle Puppet Studio. Not only do we post behind the scenes pictures, you can see the projects we're working on. We do all sorts of fun stuff over there. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow along, leave a comment, and enjoy your very own puppet mouth. All right, bye everybody.